Hello and welcome back to my studio. I'm Malcolm Dewey and this is part 2 in my series about paint brushes. In this episode we're going to look at oil painting brushes. I'm going to be using brushes made by Daler Rowney in their Georgian brush range. I've chosen this range of brushes because they look like the best compromise between quality and price. They are premium brushes, but I believe at a more reasonable price point, and I believe this is important, especially for beginners and hobby painters and even professional artists starting out, to have a good quality and affordable paintbrush that is also readily available at good art stores. So the Georgian range of brushes seem to cover that for me. If you're in South Africa like I am, you can find these brushes at artsavingsclub.co.za. Now I've chosen oil painting brushes in the hog bristle range. These are chunking hog bristles, a natural bristle. This bristle does make it a lot easier for oil painters to paint in that thick, juicy, impressionist style of painting, a style that I do prefer. If you are looking for brushes to do fine glazing and blending in sort of an old master style tradition, then you will be looking for a sable type hair, or a soft synthetic hair perhaps, that will help you with that. But I believe that the bristle in most cases cover the impressionist or loose painting style that a lot of artists do prefer. So what am I looking for in a good oil painting brush? Well, I'm looking for a good spring in the bristles, so they must be able to return to shape. I also want the bristles to be firm enough to be able to scoop up good thick quantities of oil paint, put that down and return to shape. I also want the bristles to stay in the brush. Poor quality bristle brushes, you'll be picking out hairs from your wet painting, and that is of course extremely annoying. You don't want that. I also want the bristles to be interlocked. You can get that impression when you look closer at the bristles and see that the natural curve of the bristle has been used to keep the shape, or help keep the shape of the bristles. So that would be called interlocking, and that is something you want as well to avoid a splayed or bristles. You can see cheap bristle brushes, the hairs just look like they are shoved in the ferrule and they have that splayed look already. They are really not much good for fine art, in my opinion. I haven't used these brushes before. This is the first time. They are all clean, untouched, and I'm going to show you a few strokes that I like to use when painting, typical brush strokes, and I'm going to do a painting as well and give you an assessment of the brushes after that as well. So let's have a quick look at the actual brushes that I've selected for this test. Okay, so here are the brushes, and I would suggest that this is a good range for most artists to start out, and this would be the core brushes that I use with my painting. First of all, we've got a lovely brush here called the Skyflow, and you can use it for painting, obviously, big broad strokes, blocking in or toning your canvas before you head on to the smaller brushes. Of course, you can use it for things like varnishing your paintings, but I would probably use a cheaper brush for that, or maybe a household hardware store brush for varnishing purposes. This I would use for my paintings. Right, for commencing a painting, I would typically use a brush something like this. This is a long flat, number 8. And as you can see, long flat bristle brushes with an interlocked appearance, straight edge at the top, and this will give a nice strong brush stroke, carry a lot of paint as well, good spring to it. And this I would regard as my workhorse brush. I use this quite easily for the entire duration of a typical painting. Instead of a long flat, you could also use a filbert. As you can see, the typical filbert shape with the rounded tip of the brush. This is also a number 8. Good long bristle, also interlocked. And the filbert shape may be a little bit more convenient for you if you're using shapes that are typically found in portraits or still life paintings, maybe floral arrangements that you're working on. You could find this filbert shape to give a convenient rounded brush stroke. Heading further into the painting and into the final smaller shapes, I may start using a number 4. This is the long flat, and this is the filbert. And finally, I've chosen a rigger brush. This is in fact a sable rigger number 2 in the Georgian oil painting range. And obviously the ideal sort of brush when you want to do fine lines, I tend to paint those pretty loose and quick as well, but it gives you that fine line when you need it. You can also sign your name with it, and all round it is a useful brush, particularly in the closing stages of a painting. So that's it really. If you want to get the typical brushes for just about any oil painting, then this would be it. So let's have a look at a few ways to make brush strokes confidently, and I'm then going to try them out in a painting.